SWOT analysis. And when we talk about SWOT, we're talking about strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. You'll notice that this first week has been highly concentrated on you figuring you out, right? In terms of how do you look to the government, how do you look to competitors, and this is another step in that process. You don't have to use the tool, but it helps you to kind of think about where your potential risk areas are, where you will appear strong against your competitors, what kinds of things you can do to ghost your competitors in your proposal, and how you can take the government business as a launch pad to other opportunities for your company. So when the government is evaluating your proposal, they're always comparing you to your competitors. Even if you have an incumbent contract and you think that you're in like Flynn with that government customer, they're still comparing you to your competitors when it comes time for recompete. So you always want to have a perspective of yourself, a realistic perspective of yourself, because I know that all of you are much better than all of your competitors. I know that, but you want to make sure that you share that with the government. You want me to stay over here?
Yeah, that actually is better, yes.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So a SWOT analysis helps you understand how you compare to your competitors. It also gives you sort of a flight path for growth. Thanks so much. For how you can make improvements to your own organization so that you can better equip yourself to handle government contracts. So what we focus on in the SWOT analysis is we highlight our strengths. We think about what are our true strengths. If you have the same product that's exactly the same as everybody else, that's not a strength, right? A strength is something that really differentiates you from your competitors. And all these, all this information is on Edgit, like we talked about yesterday. It also helps you to mitigate your weaknesses. So if you know what your weaknesses are, you can maybe, I don't want to say dance around them, but you can sort of downplay your weaknesses in your proposals. You can ghost your competitors' weaknesses. You can downplay your competitors' strengths. You can also seize more opportunities and then prepare to handle your threats. Because let's face it, there are always things that can go wrong on government contracts, and they can have some significant issues if you do have problems. So you want to make sure that you're pretty well equipped, knowing what your true strengths and weaknesses are going into it. So when we think about your SWOT analysis, what you really should be thinking about is conducting it at the NAICS level. Because if you're at the specific product line level, there are going to be things that you do really well with one product line that you don't do so well with another product line. Or you might have a big weakness with one area that you don't have with the other. So you don't want to sort of clump your whole company together and do a SWOT analysis at that level. What you really want to be doing is thinking about it at the NAICS level, because again, you may not be providing consistent service, you may not be providing consistent product enhancements across all areas. So that's why you want to think about it at the NAICS level. So has anybody conducted any form of SWOT analysis in their own company? Okay.
We do that as a part of the growth projects that we handle as well.
Yeah, it really is a tried and true type of methodology that a lot of companies use. So as I mentioned, you want to do it at if you've done it at the company level, you want to take it down a level to the NAICS code. You could probably, your SWOT analysis could potentially yield different results. And the other thing is that, if you, let's say for example, your customers in one product line keep saying, oh, you have great quality, your quality is so great, your quality is so great. It can almost have that halo effect where you think everything you do is great. And in reality, you're not hearing those words about how great your quality is on another one of your product lines. So that's why you want to be thinking about it across all areas.
I fixed it quicker for you, Marianne.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So when you think about your strengths, you're thinking about those particular areas where you provide a superior product or service as compared to your competitors. So what are you doing that's different, that makes you jump out of the herd? Because remember yesterday when we talked about the proposal process, we talked about those little boxes that you put throughout your proposal. This is the kind of stuff you put in there. Because they can take these words exactly, the government evaluators, and they can use those strengths to justify why they're giving you high scores. So you really want to have a clear idea in your own mind of what you do great. If your competitors same product or service and it's exactly the same as yours, it's not a strength. So you have to look beyond that. What do you provide? Superior customer service? Do you provide quicker delivery? Are you at a cheaper price? What is it that differentiates you? Strengths are the wow factors in your proposal. This is the only thing that can get you points. Everything else can cause you to lose points, but strengths cause you to get points in the evaluation criteria. So it's really important that you know what they are so that you can make sure that when you write your proposals that they are peppered throughout your entire proposal. And don't humor yourself. You know, this is not an exercise where you should leave it feeling good if you don't have any strengths. If you don't have any strengths, figure out how you can start getting some strengths, right? Because it doesn't do you any good to just sort of gloss over this because you're not going to be able to convince the government. So what are some examples of strengths in your industries? They don't necessarily have to be yours, but what would be examples of strengths in your industries?
On-time deliveries.
Exactly, on-time deliveries. Especially if you're in an industry where a lot of companies don't deliver on time. What else?
Ability to stay within tolerance.
To stay within tolerance, right. So, you know, the government's giving you very specific tolerances, and if you can stay within them when you manufacture your products, then that's going to be much better, right?
Quality management system.
Exactly. The government's going to require quality management, but if you show that it's been part of your lifeblood and you're able to demonstrate, you know, metrics from it, those are all great examples. So you see that it goes beyond just the product. Maybe your product is bigger, faster, cheaper than somebody else's. Any of those would be strengths as well. Okay, weaknesses are those areas of your business that another company can highlight and justify why they, instead of you, should win the contract. So when you're thinking about weaknesses, this is your Achilles heel. What is it that you're doing that your competitors know about that they can sort of emphasize the fact that they're much better in this area than you are? So those weaknesses, you know, it's always hard to think about our own weaknesses, particularly if we're the president of the company and it's, you know, this is our baby and you don't want to say the warts on your own baby. But, you know, you really need to sort of take an objective view. And, you know, weaknesses, it's also, this is great information to get from, you know, your customer surveys. You know, any voice of the customer type activity where they're telling you, hey, you know, your product's great, and if it just did this one more thing, it would be totally perfect for me. So it's those kind of things that you can enhance. And when we think about weakness, think about variance. So we're going to talk about this for a second. And it falls within your tolerance question, your tolerance comment. You know, there's a whole bunch of different quality initiatives out there right now. You know, Malcolm Baldrige, the Six Sigma, Total Quality Management, but they're all focused on this. What is this diagram? Okay, now mind you, I usually just draw it on the screen, but I was trying to draw it with PowerPoint. A little glitchy here. What is this?
The normal curve.
Yeah, it's a normal bell-shaped curve. Where do you usually see this?
Things go wrong.
When things go wrong,
Part of life cycle.
where are my parents in the room? Where do
The
you
amount
see
of hugs and kisses you get.
this? Where do you see this as parents?
Oh, where your child ranks and with
Exactly.
everybody else. Yeah.
Right. So what this represents is the normal distribution, which means all children fall somewhere on this line, in this curve. And why does this bump up in the middle like this?
Averages, or where the bulk of the people fall.
Where the bulk of the people fall, right? So the bulk of the people fall here, right? And what happens if I'm over here or over here? These should be flat lines.
They're either really good or really bad.
Right, those are the outliers, right? Malcolm Gladwell wrote a book called The Outliers, those people that fall on either end of the normal distribution. So if it bumps up in the middle like that because of the fact that most children fall in here somewhere. What does this line represent? It represents the mean. So if you were thinking about your manufacturing, this line would represent your perfect product. It would represent your perfect product. In other words, you had the exact specifications, and any product that met those exact specifications, there was no variance, you were right where you needed to be, would fall on this line. This is your perfect product. Any product or service that doesn't fall exactly on this line, it means there's variance. You're varying away from this mean. And that represents a defect. So perfect, defects. So when you're thinking about your particular products, you need to be thinking about how much variance can be tolerated in your industry. So let's take an example. This pen is green on the outside. It's got black writing. And what color ink's on the inside? Green. And what color's the lid? See how it all matches? Now let's say, for example, your company produced these pens. And let's say that when you produced the pen, it was a green casing, it was green ink inside, it was a green cap, but instead of this black writing that we have here, it was this white writing, like it's on this one. Is that a variance? Yes, because the perfect pen looks exactly like this, and it doesn't look like this. Could you still sell it if it had white writing?
Sure.
Probably, right? Unless your customer was extremely particular, and let's face it, government customers are extremely particular, you could probably sell this. Now, your customer may say, well, I told you it needed to be black writing and you put white writing on it, so I want a discount on the pen. And then you would need to comply with that because you didn't provide exactly what they asked for. So this pen, if it has white writing, is a variant. It provides variance from the mean. So how much tolerance your industry has for variance drives what is considered a perfect product for you versus what is considered a variant product for you. And when you're talking with the government, there's a common rule that says you can't get nothing for nothing. So from the government's perspective, if they tell you that they want a green pen with a green lid, green ink, and black writing, and you give them something different than that, they can't just say, oh, that's fine. Because that would be giving you the ability to not meet contractual requirements, and they're not getting anything in return. So they could quite honestly say to you that white ink, that's going to, we're going to deduct 10% from the price, or 5% from the price, whatever. And that would be something you'd have to live with. Now let me ask you another question. Let's say, for example, you're supposed to be producing this pen, and instead of a green lid, there's a blue lid on it. That this is what gets produced. Any issue? Yeah. Let's say that when you open it up, instead of having green ink, it also has blue ink. Can you sell this pen? Yeah, so basically you're relying on the patience and tolerance factors of your customers. But most customers are not going to want to buy this pen. Why?
You don't know what's in it.
Yeah, it's very confusing. It's not like you can pick it up and expect that you're going to get green ink, like you did in the other scenario. So when you're thinking about your weaknesses is a hard word for our heads to get around, right? Especially if it's our own company. You need to be thinking about it in terms of these variances, because if you're not consistently always producing perfect products, you have weaknesses. And there are things that you can be doing to improve those weaknesses. So today, you might have this much variance in your products. So anything that happens in here, you consider good enough. So your goal would be to figure out how you can reduce this amount of variance so that you're always producing products that are right on that line. Does that make sense? So this is what we just walked through. So variance can occur at any stage of the manufacturing process. You know, if the Japanese have a word when they're doing total quality management, because you know, we had the guru for total quality management, Drucker, and he was not heard. People wouldn't pay attention to him here in the United States. But when he went over to Japan, they really absorbed what he had to say because they have a much longer planning horizon and they saw the value of being able to produce perfect products over time. So they really listened to Peter Drucker, whereas here in the United States, not so much. And so what happened is with the Japanese, the quality culture really blossomed in Japan. And one of the things they talk about is the word Muda, M-U-D-A. And Muda means garbage. So the fact that I'm over here, and every time I want to get a sip of coffee, I have to walk across here and take a sip, and then I put it back down here, and then I walk back over here, that's an example of Muda. Because the perfect scenario would be if my coffee cup was right here, right? Because then I could just drink it and put it back down. So anything that causes extra steps, or the fact that the chalkboard is over, the whiteboard or the paper is over here, and all the pens are over here, this is causing extra effort to get these pens. So anything that you can do to take that out of your manufacturing process, the extra steps, the fact that I'm working on an assembly line and I have to stop and wait because I need more raw materials, that's an example of Muda. The fact that the person in front of me just took a break, now I have to wait for them to get their work done, that's Muda, because things are being wasted at that point. So when you're thinking about weaknesses, think about Muda. Think about things that you can do to get out of your manufacturing process to make it more streamlined and more effective and efficient. It can also occur during your processes. So we always think, you know, the whole quality environment came up through manufacturing, but it also applies to processes that your office staff uses. You know, what's happening in your offices that could be done more efficiently? Are you producing reports because they made sense at one point in your company's career, but it doesn't make any sense anymore because all the information is available online? You know, we're creatures of habit. We keep doing the same things over and over again. And it's not until we take a step back and kind of look down at what's happening, almost like with a microscope, to say, wait a minute, this just doesn't make sense anymore. What can I do to get some of that, those extra steps or that extra effort out of the process? Variance can also occur within your people. So, you know, let's say, for example, you have 5 people all performing the same task. You as their leader know, you know, Susie's a lot better than John. What do we need to do to get John up to speed so that he can match Susie's equivalents, so that you can start raising the bar for that team? You know, you're always thinking about where is their variance and what can you do to reduce that variance? Variance in the environment. So again, if you have raw materials that people are having to wait for, that's an environmental type issue. Variance can occur predictably, meaning that you know this always happens. You have a variance at this point, or it can happen unexpectedly. You know, if 5 people call in sick today because of the stomach flu, that's going to be an unpredictable variance. But your productivity today is not going to be as high as it would be if you had a full staff. So these are the kind of things to keep in mind with regard to variance. So what causes variance in your neck of the woods?
Yeah, illness is big right now.
Yeah, it seems like illness is bigger this year than
Yeah,
usual.
everybody gets stomach flu or whatever.
Yeah.
Just lack of consistency can be a big thing. If there's not standard operating procedures in place and the way you would do it and I would do it, so if there's not something there, so that's a huge issue, I think, with some manufacturing companies.
And Stephanie's bringing up a great point, because when you're small and you're dealing with just a few people in your organization, you can kind of get by with a wing and a prayer, right? You're just, everybody's working at full steam and things are getting done and you're getting new customers and everything's fine. But as you start to get bigger and bigger, let's say, for example, the 3 of you, what the 3 of you had in your heads as to what's going to happen and how it's going to get done. Now that you bring the rest of us in, we don't share that same mind map that you have in your brains. And so in order for you to communicate with all of us who are new employees what your standards are, you've got to start having procedures. And we as humans, how do we feel about procedures?
We need them, but we hate them.
Exactly. Right? There are some people that are all over procedures.
Yeah.
God bless them. But you know, most of us tend to have a real shirking back about procedures because, you know, we just want to go and get it done however we get it done. What else?
Inexperience with employees, like, I mean, it's gonna happen in any industry, any business. Like, you realize you do have to take time, so to speak, as I was talking, to sit down and sharpen